I'll just welcome everyone. This is the October meeting of the Green Committee. Our guest speaker is Mo Kinberg of New Jersey Future, who leads NJ Future's Sewage-Free Streets and Rivers initiative, and at the recommendation of Deb Italiano, the Journal Square Community Association Board of Directors voted to affiliate with Sewage-Free Streets and Rivers. And I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to be doing, but I figure part of it is to invite you to speak to this committee. And, Mo, why don't you just take it away?
Sure. Well, I'm glad you guys have a green committee. I think that's really great and really needed. So thank you for having me.
Our slogan is working together to build a better community, clean, green, and safe. And we started 5 years ago. And so clean, green, and safe is definitely our prime mission.
I wish all the neighborhood associations had green committees.
Yeah,
that would be transformative for Jersey City.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Mo, I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's okay. So I work for New Jersey Future. We're a statewide nonprofit organization. We've been around for about 30 years, and we work on issues related to land use. So we believe the built environment impacts quality of life. And unfortunately, in New Jersey, we have a lot of issues, especially around water, where people don't know if the water that comes out of their faucet is going to be safe. And then a lot of folks are experiencing flooding. And so we do a lot of work around water infrastructure. And then I specifically work doing community outreach in communities with combined sewer systems. So we've had a lot of flooding recently, and that compelled me to do this presentation. So I would love to get your feedback on this too, because this is the first run of this. So Sewage-Free Streets and Rivers is what you guys have joined. Your waterways, your neighborhood, your money, and your voice. And why sewage-free streets and rivers? Because unfortunately we have sewage going into our rivers. And then we also have sewage coming up onto our streets when we flood, because we have a combined sewer system. So why is my city flooding? Well, increased rainfall. So they're predicting an annual increase of rainfall from 4% to 11% by 2050. And I think, as with all things related to climate change, we could probably double those numbers because it just seems like everything is more than what's being predicted. So we're getting a lot more rain. We have too much cement. So you kind of see if we were in an area where it was trees and grass, when it rained, that would, go into the subsurface and be absorbed. And you would have a little bit of runoff, off of the grass or ground. But because we live in a built environment with lots of roads and cement and buildings, we have only a little gets absorbed into the subsurface. The majority of that runs off, and that goes into our sewer systems. And we have an old sewer system. So most of Jersey City has a combined sewer system. And so that basically means that our sewage and our stormwater, rainwater, go into one pipe. And that's too much water. So when it's not raining, the sewage gets, into the pipe and it goes to the sewer treatment plant. When it's raining, there's too much water in the system that overflows into, the Hudson River. And now it's backing up because there's so much water in the system, and with sea level rise, that water is backing back up into the streets, back up into people's homes. And it's very important for people to know that that's not just water. That's a combination of sewage and stormwater. So this is really a public health issue, and it's getting worse. So this is where the black squares are where the outfalls are. So if you can locate yourself, this is where the outfalls are. So these are the areas where the sewage and stormwater, when it does make it out, those are the place where the pipes let out. So those black dots, you can see Jersey City actually has, I think, 21.
Yeah.
All the way around Jersey City. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, when it rains, sometimes it smells like poop. I mean, it just does. So, there's a reason for that.
So, and whatever red areas on that map, the red dots and
Let me see the red dots. Read this right now.
it's a little hard to read.
Yeah, there's a little, those are the pump stations.
Okay.
So the red dots are the pump station. I mean, this is a map of our sewer system.
And that line moving through the center of the city, is that Kennedy, supposed to be Kennedy Boulevard?
That's the spine, right, Deb?
Yep.
The spine of Jersey City.
Yeah, what
That's the high
that,
point.
yeah, what that points to is a downward slope on either side of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the drainage. So everything kind of goes down from either side of that.
Right.
So it doesn't, so it has kind of like the, is that the geology? So it's basically showing, you know, this is flat, but there, you know, the city is actually shows that how it flows down. So our sewer shed essentially comes down from the middle.
I have something I'm going to share with you, Mo, because I have sort of a 3D version of this.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think I've seen that before, but it does help to see
Yeah.
where the water flows
It
down
may.
from.
If you're going to take this show on the road, you know.
Okay. We'll be generic. It won't just be Jersey City focused, but so what can we do about increased rainfall? So, you know, because we have all of this rainfall, we can absorb it. So the image on the left is of a rain garden, which is, you know, green infrastructure that essentially is, you know, has a pit. So it absorbs the water. Not just, you know, it's more than just a garden. It's, you know, engineered. And then it has a pipe at the bottom so that, you know, it can store that water, but it can also go back into the sewer system. So it captures it and then releases it.
That's an engineered rain garden, not all rain
That is an
gardens.
engineered rain garden, yeah.
Not all
And
rain
there are
gardens
different,
have a pipe.
I'm sure Deb's talked, I'm not going to go into too much detail into green infrastructure. I'm sure Deb's done that already. This is one type, but the point is that because we have increased rainfall, we need to capture it. If we just let it go into our sewer system, that is when we're going to get flooding, we're going to get backups, and we're going to get poor, you know, quality within our rivers as well, and pollution. So we need to absorb this rainwater before it goes into our sewer system, and that will really help take a lot of the pressure on our, you know, take pressure off of our sewer system. And it's better for the environment. It's better for our aquifers. You know, it's a good thing. You can also collect rainwater in rain barrels, and lots of other different ways. And then the other thing is like the increased rainfall is, you know, it is related to climate change. So take action on the individual, state, city, federal level, global level, everything to reduce, you know, to address climate change, because the rainfall is a product of that. You know, what can we do about too much cement? We can remove it, we can replace it, and we can regulate it. So again, rain gardens or bioswales, we're taking out the cement and we're putting in green. Doesn't have to be green. The other example is there's pervious pavers, there's pervious pavement. There's, you know, lots of ways that you can absorb that water and not have it run off. But it means changing our city, changing the design of our streets. So we can design our streets to manage stormwater. Anytime we're doing redoing a streetscape, we can put in green infrastructure. We can put in green, we can put in storage. We can do a lot to manage the stormwater, and our streets are a great space that we have that's not being utilized for stormwater right now, and our sidewalks. We can design the entire city to manage stormwater. So there's roof water collection, there's stormwater basins, there's rain gardens, there's permeable bike parking, there's below grade detention, there's green streets. And then there's like the existing pipes. There's a lot we can do. And it really has to be transformative. So it's really transforming. And this is kind of what's on the horizon. So we can also, what can we do about our old sewers? We can keep our sewers clean, adopting a catch basin, educate the public about only throwing toilet paper, pee and poop, toilet paper, only thing that should go in the toilet. You know, don't put grease down the sink. There's a lot of public education that can be happening. Baby wipes, never get thrown down the toilet.
Really?
They say
Okay,
flushable,
Jay.
but they're not flushable.
Jay,
pressure.
there's a lesson for you.
And then
And
advocating
no
for-
masks either.
Oh, gosh, no. Advocating for investments in our sewer infrastructure, and this is where it comes to the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. And you can create a stormwater utility, which is a way to create incentives for private development to install green infrastructure. So it's a way to create that a program that incentivizes taking out cement and putting in green infrastructure in the private sector, which a lot of the land is private.
Bill, you really want to know more about the stormwater utility stuff? I mean, everybody does, but on
Okay.
behalf of, Bill chairing a conversation and being
want-
part of the board of the Journal Square Community Association, you should know more about it.
Yeah,
I'm going to get into a little bit more, and then at the end, if you want to, I can talk a little bit more about it too.
sure.
So what is the CSO permit and what is the CSO long-term control plan? Essentially, this combined sewer overflow issue that we have is in violation of the Clean Water Act. This is not just a Jersey City issue. There are something like 900 cities across the country that have combined sewer systems. They're just kind of like the first technology that existed to get, sewage out of your city, which is a great thing to do. But it is very old technology. And so the federal government's come down and said to all of these communities that you have to create plans to stop the sewage overflows because it impairs water quality. And so in 2015, New Jersey came down to the 21 communities, Jersey City, Newark, Camden, Patterson, Perth Amboy, most of our older cities, and said, you have 5 years to create a plan called a long-term control plan. And that's basically going to say what you're going to do to reduce the overflows by 85%. And the plans will be like 15 to 30 years. So Jersey City, the Municipal Utilities Authority is the one who created this plan, but the Jersey City is very much involved with it, as well as Passaic Valley Sewage Commission, which is our sewer treatment plant. So we're working together with our sewer treatment plant and the Jersey City MUA and the city to create this plan for how we're going to deal with this sewer issue. So this plan was submitted in last October, so it's been nearly a year. It's actually a regional plan. There are 8 other communities that all go to the same sewer treatment plant. And so we're all working together because we have the same, essentially the same pipe that all of our sewage goes into to the sewer treatment plant. And they also manage 40 other communities that do not have combined sewer systems. So they're like the largest sewer treatment plant on the Northeast corridor. Just a fun fact there.
Mo, are you saying that it is a regional plan as in the decision taken for the LTCP, or you're just saying that PBSA is regional, PBSC?
We are going to have a regional plan.
That
and the way
decision
that
has been taken.
That decision has been taken. We agreed to that. When I say we, I mean Jersey City MUA agreed to a regional plan. They're still in ongoing negotiations on the financing side of it. So it could at some point fall through, but I'd say 95% sure that we are doing this regional plan. Essentially, it means that there are a few projects that are regional that benefit everybody in the region. And then there's a lot of projects that are still just like Jersey City based.
Or locally, meaning
Locally.
other municipalities will do their own local thing, we'll do our
Exactly.
own local thing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
is green infrastructure one of those things?
Yes. Green infrastructure is one of those things.
I
So
I totally missed out that decision was taken. Okay.
it was, they agreed to it when they submitted their plan, they all signed on to the regional plan. They still submitted municipal plans because of this, because they hadn't agreed on the financing. And so that kind of is like the backup if something falls through. And getting groups to agree on financing is difficult. So that's why, but at this stage, I would say 95% yes. So this is,
Mo, when did the Jersey City MUA agree to this plan?
This was back in October last year.
Okay.
Yeah, they signed off on it, on the regional plan.
Oh, is there anything that we in the community can do to help you out? It seems like everything's going as planned to a certain degree.
Yeah, so I guess like the biggest thing right now is, well, there's a few things. So this is just so you guys know, this is what the plan looks like. And what's gonna happen is, well, I guess, yeah, so there's a few things. There's the financing of the plan. So we have the plan, and as you can see, these are millions of dollars. The 102.4 is million, 91. Jersey City's plan altogether adds up to like over $300 million. And that's even with a regional plan where we were able to get the sewer treatment plant to pay for the regional aspects of it. So there's like a regional interceptor, the sewer treatment plant is going to pay for that, which takes the burden off of Jersey City, but it's still a lot of money. So, and there's green infrastructure in the plan too. As a community, I think the biggest things are, advocating for how we equitably finance this plan. So right now there's $6 billion from the American Rescue Plan that's with the state. And that could be used for Jersey City and the other CSO communities, because water infrastructure is one of the things that it can be used for. So that is one thing to talk to your legislators to about trying to get some of this money from the American Rescue Plan to pay for these upgrades. Because if we don't, it's the other way of paying it is through our sewer bills.
Right.
So, and that's really going to be detrimental, especially for low income residents in Jersey City.
No, I have a question about that. The ARPA funds, you just said they're with, I thought that Jersey City received directly sort of share, if you will, for monies. Since I thought that Health and Human Services was sitting on some of this, I'm going to see Stacy tomorrow and ask her more about it. The idea was that some of the over distributed.
Deb, I'm having trouble hearing you.
You're kind of going in and out.
Sorry, can you hear me better now?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought Jersey City had its hands on ARPA funds residing now with the municipality. So I'm asking about your reference when you said the state has its disbursement from the federal government of ARPA money. Don't we also now have our own pot of ARPA money that can be allocated to this?
Yep, there's both. I don't know. I mean, I think there was money that went directly to Jersey City, and then there's also money that went directly to the state. But that state money could still be used for this as well. And I'm not sure how Jersey City's allocated the funding that it got directly.
I don't think any of the ARPA monies have been used for this, but it's what we kind of want to know is, what the ARPA funds are being used for, and if there's money still left for this, and how much.
That's a great question. Yep, because they can be used for water infrastructure.
Yes, also, and green infrastructure.
Yep, exactly.
Mo, how much is Jersey City doing in the way of green infrastructure? I ask because a few months back in June, we had Mayor Phillip on a Zoom call, and he brought quite a few of his top officials, including Joe Cunha, the head of the JSQCA. And I asked, so is green infrastructure in the plan for Ward C, where Journal Square is located? And he said, oh, yeah, definitely. And so being a pain in the butt, I tried to follow up with him, and it took a couple weeks before I finally got him to acknowledge that, well, we really aren't doing much, at least in Ward C, in terms of green infrastructure. So how much, and
basically he said that there wasn't a plan.
Right.
It was on the radar.
Right. So I think that's exactly, so there's the financing piece and then there's the implementation piece. And so this plan just says 7%, they're going to manage 7% of impervious surface in Jersey City with green infrastructure. So that's great. And they're going to spend according to this plan, they're going to spend $91 million on green infrastructure, which is great. You as a community should be advocating for the areas in Journal Square, in Ward C, where there is flooding, and you should be advocating for green infrastructure to be implemented in those places. And even looking at areas where, like you saw that spine, green infrastructure could even help in areas where there's maybe not flooding to gather that stormwater at higher elevation to reduce the flooding at a lower elevation. So I think as a community, identifying places where there can be green infrastructure is a great thing to do immediately. Talking to neighbors, identifying where the flooding is happening, identifying potential places, because it's in the plan, but we don't know where it's going to be implemented. And Journal Square is definitely a place that needs green infrastructure.
So we have.
But that's just me. I mean, I can't speak for you guys.
No,
but
no, that's really.
I see there's
important.
not a lot of trees there. I see there's not a lot of green space.
But it's important to find out from the community, so there are two things. There's no plan, there's not a site plan. There's sort of a generic assessment about what areas are potentially suitable for green infrastructure, both high and low in Jersey City. But something, and maybe I can work with you on this, New Jersey Future interested potentially, but I'm resurrecting, we've had this on our green infrastructure site for our green infrastructure page on our website for some years, but it's a question to the community, a Google form they could fill out if they have flooding on their block. Right? And we want to do a campaign for that, but I'd like a little support on it. Maybe we can have a conversation offline. I could share that form with all the neighborhood associations, certainly with Bill, because he's really leaning in, but even the other groups who are partners on Sewage Free New Jersey, right? Whether they live here in Jersey City or not, they can adapt the form, right? And then what you get to do, at least the way we do this, we look at the responses and we map that. And that would be something that would be a more intelligent conversation than to have, because I'm not getting a response from planning, from the MU, from nobody. Nobody is willing to say, here's where we're building green infrastructure.
Yeah.
Landscape architecture, engineering, MUA, nobody.
Yeah, that's really disappointing.
So I definitely think there's some mapping that needs to happen to identify the areas where there's flooding and identify the areas of highest need. So that's really a next step, so we can just start getting projects in the ground and get them. I mean, Jersey City is one of the few that actually put green infrastructure at the beginning of their plan. So they have it starting in 2021, according to this timeline that they submitted. I think we should hold them to that, because that would be great. Get that in as soon as possible. I mean, if we want to have a real impact on the flooding situation, if we want to improve, air quality, if we want to improve, the temperature issues, getting that green infrastructure in as soon as possible would be amazing. So trying to really hold them to what they submitted and what they've allocated in terms of funding for this.
One of the things that is also important, I've been speaking with Mo a little bit about this, but is to point to the other efforts beyond flooding that are occurring in Jersey City. So for example, the study that we did around the urban heat island effect, where we're advocating for more green infrastructure in these communities where there's no shade trees, right? And it's very arid and it's all concrete. There are intersect points in those communities where flooding is occurring. So we've already been looking for funding and speaking with Health and Human Services, because it is a public health issue, not only the urban heat island effect, but flooding, right? So there are opportunities for, the city to really come together and understand strategically you know, how to sort of create these green infrastructure interventions for more than one reason to get the bigger bang for the buck. So for example, we shouldn't only be working with, you know, Health and Human Services because extreme heat or the urban heat island effect is, you know, public health issue. If the MUA has said, here, we've budgeted X, we want to plant 2,000 or 3,000 trees and we've budgeted X for green infrastructure installation starting in 2021, where Health and Human Services needs that in certain communities because there's this other problem that green infrastructure can remedy. So people aren't talking, the left is not talking to the right in Jersey City. There is not a coalesced, comprehensive view of why green infrastructure and where green.
Yeah, so Deb, one of the things that I proposed to Lindsay, and we're going to talk about the next, so just so you know, Jay and Bill, there's a Jersey City START group, which is stormwater management team for resiliency or something.
Stormwater treatment and resiliency team.
Right. So that's a group in Jersey City that's community organizations, but also the MUA and the city working on green infrastructure. And I proposed to them doing a series of workshops in the spring called All Hands on Deck, which would be implementing green infrastructure to reduce flooding from combined sewer overflows. And the idea for those workshops, if all goes well, is exactly what you're talking about, Deb, to bring, you know, all the different departments together. We need everybody, you know, it needs to be the schools, it needs to be the DPW, it needs to be planning, it needs to be the MUA. We need all these departments working together, and we need community as well to identify where the flooding is happening, and also to be, you know, informed and involved in the implementation process. So hopefully we can get that all together and you guys can be part of that. It's just like in the idea state right now, but I think it could be something really good and kind of just, again, just to kind of push this through and start just doing stuff. Because I think after Ida, for me at least, it was a kind of a wake up call, even though I'm working on these issues every day, that we need to just get it done.
Yeah.
We can't wait for the next flood. We can't wait for the next, you know, hurricane season to hit us. We need to start doing the work. So the idea is just to get everybody together and just say, all hands on deck, let's just do it. You know,
Yeah, and different people have different needs and agenda, you know, requirements and priorities, which is why I'm suggesting that this conversation should not just be about flooding.
Yeah, it's just that's a starting point, but yes, it's not just about flooding.
And Bill, you might want to attend, Bill J, you're welcome to attend this Green Infrastructure Working Group. You know, it's meeting again next Thursday at 10 a.m. Arcadis, the city's consultant on this matter, is presenting. It may be interesting to you.
I'll send it as a follow-up. I'll send the link and everything.
Yeah, okay, great.
So just so that you guys know
Hey,
this.
Mo,
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks for doing all this work. This is something I never even knew about until you just told me about it. So I'm really glad I joined in tonight.
Okay. So just so you guys know, the X's on here is because of the regional plan. So because we're doing a regional plan, these where I have the X's, we're going to be large storage tanks. Because we're doing the regional plan, we're not putting in these large storage tanks as many. There's still two. There's going to be one at Penhorn Creek and one at North Hudson. Very, very large, humongous, like really big storage tanks. So when it rains, it goes into those instead of going into our waterways, instead of going into our homes, hopefully. But they were able to cut back on them because they're doing this parallel interceptor, which is basically a very large pipe that runs all the way through Newark, and it allows us to pump more to the sewer treatment plant. So that's this regional aspect, just so you guys know. And we were able to get the sewer treatment plant to pay for that large pipe, which is a great thing. So that's something like $200 million that, you know, Jersey City and the other 8 CSO communities in the region are not going to have to pay for. So what's next for these permits? And this is another way for you all to be involved. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection is going to, you know, approve these long-term control plans. They're in negotiations with municipalities and utilities right now, but they're going to settle on something. They're going to approve them. And then they're going to have a stakeholder process. So this is an opportunity for community members to weigh in on what's going to be in the next permit. And the permits have requirements for like public outreach. So one of the things that we found was in the last permit, the language around public outreach was very weak. So it said that they were required to do public outreach, but it could be like you held a meeting and no one showed up and you can check off a box. Or you held a meeting at a location that wasn't accessible and no one showed up and you could check off a box. Or you were allowed to just be part of a regional meeting, which for our area is unacceptable considering, we're Patterson, Jersey City, Newark, and they could have a meeting in Newark. People from Patterson are not going to go to Newark. People from Jersey City are probably not going to go to Newark. So the stakeholder process, there's going to be a survey with questions. I will send it out to all the Sewage Free Streets and Rivers partners. So Bill, you can share it with your group. And there will be questions about public outreach. There'll be questions about climate change, environmental justice. And these are going to be requirements that would be in all the permits that are issued. And it's an opportunity for people to weigh in on what those requirements will be.
Great.
Yeah.
I just said great.
Okay, great. So that should be happening soon. Then after that's done, the Department of Environmental Protection is going to issue another 5-year permit based on the long-term control plans. So sometime in 2022, most likely, Jersey City will get a permit, and that'll say what we're going to do for the next 5 years. And then after that 5 years, they'll issue another 5-year permit. So they do it on these 5-year cycles. And these permits are basically what projects will be implemented, the timelines, and then the requirements for how they're going to measure them and what reporting that they need to do and how they do public outreach. So this is great. Things are moving. Feels like they're moving at snail's pace, but they're moving. And there'll be a 60-day, once they issue that permit, there'll be a 60-day kind of review period. So you can also comment on that if something's totally wrong with it or doesn't make sense, then you can comment on it. And then once they're approved, then we start implementing. But in all honesty, Jersey City can be implementing things right now. They don't need to wait for this plan. They don't need to wait to do green infrastructure for this plan. We can be doing it now. And DEP is definitely in favor of folks starting on things now. So it's something I would definitely, I think we should, as community members, be advocating for especially the green part to start as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then this was what Deb was talking about, the financing piece, which is another part for the, I think where community involvement is important, as how are we going to pay for this? The way that they're structured right now, like I was saying, is that they're basically structured so you pay for it through your sewer bill. So residents are really footing the bill for these huge infrastructure projects, which is why we want to get as much money from the federal government as possible, as much money from the state as possible. But even if we get millions of dollars, it's still a lot of money. And that means that our sewer bills will go up. So the different ways we could pay for it is, one option is just that our sewer bills go up. And this means like every year you would have a sewer increase for the next 30 years. So that's not fun. The other option, option 3, which is also not equitable, is it to be paid through our property taxes, which is how a lot of the time we pay for stormwater. Most stormwater infrastructure is kind of like a hidden fee because it's paid through our property taxes. We never see it, but we're paying for it. And that's also not really equitable because we're basically, residents, small businesses, and then very large warehouses or other large properties may be paying the same amount, but their stormwater contribution is much more. So this is where a stormwater utility fee comes in. And a stormwater utility is essentially charging people based on the amount of impervious surface they have. It's something that can be done, can be structured very, every municipality can structure it how they want to. So if you have a home that's 25 square feet by, if you have like 25 square feet by 100, if you have the size of a house, you could exclude that. So you could start in terms of the impervious surface fee, you could start it above the ratio of a single family home. as a way to take the burden off of single family homes. Or you could have a single family home, pay a very minimal flat fee and have it go up past that point. The idea is that if you're charging based on impervious surface, then you get credits if you put in green infrastructure or you manage that stormwater. And that's where it becomes an incentive. But you have a revenue stream.
I mean, Mo, how much, say if someone is paving their driveway and to, or resurfacing it, they, to do it with an impervious surface as opposed to the traditional, whatever it is that goes on a driveway. What's the cost differential? Is it substantially more expensive to make it impervious, or like a parking lot, or putting in?
It is more expensive. I don't know if it's substantially more expensive. I mean, I think if you're already doing the work, if you're taking out the cement and putting in new cement already, right? I think that where the cost comes in is usually like you have to dig out in order to put like the space in for absorption. And I think it's usually like the removal of dirt, in all honesty, and then putting in whatever pebbles or anything underneath that before you put the impervious surface on top of that. I think that's where the cost is accrued. I don't think the cost of the impervious surface itself is that much more expensive than cement at this point.
It's not, and not for anything, if I can just throw my 2 cents in here,
Yeah.
And New Jersey Future has sort of published that guide, which is the developer's guide for green infrastructure. They're pushing that out, saying that it is less costly to, than the hardscape structuring. So to the extent that all in, that may be true, given what they're now being required to do, which is to manage stormwater all on site these days. So, potentially doing more green infrastructure versus putting, an underground cistern, and some other engineered solutions is less expensive for developers. But overall, on the whole, if you work with nature and build up landscapes, it's less expensive than putting in, sort of a concrete set of structures.
Yeah, I think for like a homeowner, I think the cost really the challenge is really getting rid of the cement. I think taking out the cement and getting rid of it is really where the cost is. And we even had conversations with the city about how that could be done, because they have the ability to dispose of it, and they have the ability of picking it up in a way that it would be less expensive. So if the city was able to do that piece of it for residents, I think we could get people to take out a lot more of their cement and put in impervious, or you could even put in, grass. I mean, not on your driveway, but, around your house. There's a lot of space that there's a lot of cement that could be taken out of people's homes.
And I just want to say one more thing too, because I've become a little bit informed. We have the highest cost of planting a tree in Jersey City versus any other municipality in the state. And the suggestion is that the reason for that is the excavation, the concrete work, and the carting away of concrete, right? Debris removal. So if the city of Jersey City agrees to, and I've done a little bit of homework since the suggestion was made, to incent residents to take up concrete, right? And the city of Jersey City says, sure, what we'll do is load that into our debris removal contractor set of activities, or have DPW first come away with that concrete, and then it has to be carted out of the city. Ultimately, residents are going to pay for that because it's a line item in the city's budget. So they may not be paying for it up front, but ultimately it's in the city's budget, so their taxes are going to reflect.
Right. I think the idea is that it's at scale. So it's like if an individual homeowner has to pay someone to remove the cement and cart it off, that's going to be more expensive than if you're, doing it for multiple properties. So, you know, if they were able to do that, then the city could have a day or a week and say, if you're, you know, removing cement from your city, from your property, we'll come and pick it up on that week. And it's just if you're doing it at scale, it's gonna be less expensive in the long term than if you're doing it individually. That's all I'm saying. We actually had the cement removed in front of our house, and it was expensive, but it was it's worth it for us not to have that in front of our house, and we were able to do it as part of a larger project. And you know, this is, again, with the stormwater utility fee, they have this in Philadelphia. One of the things they're able to do with it, though, is if you're gathering money from, you know, let's say the supermarket that has a large parking lot, that's right now, they're not paying for any of that stormwater that's running off of that parking lot, and it's filling up our sewer system. If they start paying for that impervious surface, then we have a fund that could be used to provide grants to homeowners to take out cement from their house. Then we have funding, right? We have money that we can use to upgrade our infrastructure, and we have money that we can use also for grants for homeowners. So that's one way, something to consider, is just a more equitable way, because otherwise it's going to be entirely paid for by homeowners, and the larger properties that are not paying for it right now will not be paying their fair share.
Was it announced the other day? Did I miss that there is a municipality or two that
There's a
have now
few that are
decided to
in
implement?
feasibility. Yeah, there's a few that have feasibility studies. And so that would be the first. So this is the end of the presentation. These are the partner organizations. So thank you guys for joining. There's a lot in Jersey City. At some point we'll have a Jersey City meeting, but you guys are listed on here now as a partner.
Yeah, that's great.
And then this is just our, you know, social media and stuff like that.
Okay. And I got your presentation, so thank you for sending that, Mo.
No problem.
I will pass that along, and if I figure out how to put this recording into a link, I will send that as well. So I don't really have any other questions, but well, except to ask if I can convince my board to invite you to speak at one of our regular meetings. Would you be amenable to coming? We usually meet Saturday, the second Saturday of the month, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon.
That's fine.
Because I'd like you to reach a wider audience than just a few people, but even though I'll disseminate this, and you know, at our regular meeting next month, for a change, we're not having any speakers. We're just going to have the committee chairs talk about the work of our committees and try to get more people engaged in them. And you know, one thing I remember from your presentation, and I have a simple mind, and maybe it reflects my potty mouth, but you know, in the toilet, no baby wipes, only pee, poop, and toilet paper. May I ask, a friend of mine, I'm sometimes over at his place, and I think his wife has long hair and sometimes combs her hair into the toilet. Can that foul up a toilet?
I mean, I guess you really have to think about the fact that anything that you're putting into your toilet has to be cleaned out, right? Because that's going to the sewer treatment plant.
Right.
And then they clean, you know, all that water that goes to the sewer treatment plant, they sift it, they sort it, and then eventually that water goes back into our waterways. So you're just, you know, anything you put in there is a little bit of a burden to the sewer treatment plant, because they have to, so yeah, even human hair, I mean, it's not, I don't think human hair is biodegradable. It's not the worst thing. There's much worse things that you should not be putting in there. The way it's actually, if you ever get a chance, the Passaic Valley Sewerage Commission, which is in South Newark, they have tours. So you can go and you can see what happens, and it's pretty cool.
Really?
It is. It's a really cool tour.
See, it's really interesting. They have all these different kind of like ponds that sort the water, you know, in different degrees, and use different, you know, ways to kind of, you know, to separate. And really everything is, you know, even the sludge is reused. So It's pretty cool.
And you said they're in South Newark?
Yeah, the southern part of Newark, yeah.
All right,
And they give tours, so you can just go, you can schedule a tour
yeah, okay,
and go there and check it out. And it is pretty interesting, but it also makes you think about, because then you see when they sort it out, you kind of see what is it, there's all sorts of stuff. You see what people put in there.
one suggestion for you, Mo,
Oh,
maybe
sure.
you might want to try to convene a meeting with all the community groups in Jersey City that have
I
signed
know.
on to sewage-free streets and rivers. I mean, I'm impressed by the number of organizations that are part of this, and I'm not sure how active any of them are, but
Yeah, we've done, I mean, we've been around now for like 3 years with this campaign. And so we've had, more active times than others. And during the process where we were really trying to engage folks when they were developing the long-term control plan. So we actually, I don't know if you remember, we had a series of public meetings and we had community groups in Jersey City host them. So the Journal Square one was actually at Monarch Contemporary Kinko Park Conservancy. They hosted it at Monarch Contemporary. We had a meeting in the Heights. We had a meeting in Greenville, Bergen Lafayette, downtown. So we did quite a bit of public outreach, but it was, like a year or two ago when they were developing the plans, because we were really trying to get community feedback on the solutions. And we were really, and Deb was, instrumental in this, trying to put as much pressure on to get the green infrastructure and to get the green infrastructure done at the, sooner than later. And they did put that in the plan. It's not as much. We wanted, I think, more than 10%, we would have wanted more, but it's a good 7%, was a good amount. And we can always, we can get that in and then, try to get more as we go. I think the more that they do it, the more Jersey City does it, they have a little bit of a fear, I think, because it's new. And they don't necessarily have the expertise. And we obviously haven't been doing a great job with trees. But, we need to get them to do it and to, see that they can do this and how important it is that the community wants it. I think the more we can kind of like get these projects in the ground, then and get the city more familiar with it and trained, and get the expertise, then they'll be less reluctant, I guess.
yeah.
I have a suggestion, two things. One, Bill, see if you can attend that meeting next Thursday at 10 a.m. because you become more informed, inclusive of what you learned here tonight, but with, some dimension about some of the decisions taken by the MUA. And the other thing is, what I wanted to do was really partner with Mo around this green infrastructure conversation. We're getting the institutional findings back for what we did as the set of studies around the urban heat island effect and air quality. So if we can have an expanded green infrastructure conversation together, like if we show up talking about the business case for green infrastructure in Jersey City, Mo can come at this from a flooding perspective. SJC can come at this from a tree canopy and, some of these other issues perspective, extreme heat and air quality. It sort of coalesces things for people because we're now working with a couple of other partners and they're addressing all these climate change impacts, but they have been most successful. Climate change is, flooding is a climate change impact. Extreme heat is not. That's an urban design issue. There's a lot of asphalt accounting for some of the problem and a lack of tree canopy, accounting for some of the problem. It's going to take a green infrastructure 101 conversation with the public to sort of help them connect the dots on this stuff. These have always previously been siloed conversations. And I think that the public is a little overwhelmed being pulled in this direction around this and this direction around that. If we can sort of coalesce this for people, like the business case for green infrastructure in Jersey City and how to pay for it, you know, because of these flooding issues, because of these extreme heat issues, because of these air quality issues. You know, it finally made it into the last version of the summary document this summer for the Climate and Energy Action Plan as one of the priorities. And it's still being amended into the master plan. You know, it's just like the dots are still being connected by city officials. It's really hard for the public to connect the dots.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I mean, I think that's a good point, Deb. I think, you know, with this proposal around the all hands on deck idea, you know, it could be broader than flooding. I mean, it could be all hands on deck to address climate change. I just thought the flooding was kind of what was in the forefront of people's minds right now.
Yeah, and it's not just climate change, because it's, you know, unfortunately, when you have this climate and energy action plan, you know, it is emissions reduction is a very, and believe me, we've tried 3 years now. So I know the questions, I understand the cognitive, you know, sort of process of people trying to wrap their brains around emissions reduction. The purpose of the Climate and Energy Action Plan is to reduce emissions in Jersey City. And while, you know, more street trees have now finally made it into some of the priorities, it's, you know, you want to focus on green infrastructure in all the ways that there are not only climate change impacts that we have to plan for, but quality of life benefits. So if you start talking about climate change and those impacts, people come from one corner of the room, where I think if you talk about the business case for green infrastructure, you get people from multiple corners of the room. I'm just saying, this is part of our experience. It may not be everyone else's experience, but that's what we've learned so far.
Yeah.
So we're going to broaden the conversation.
This meeting on the 28th, who's convening it? Is it Sewage Free Streets and Rivers, Mo, or?
So this is the Jersey City, what
Start?
is it called? The START group, yeah. So I'm going to present, so Lindsay from City Planning is the chair or co-chair. And then it's kind of like a coalition. There's lots of groups who are involved.
The MUA hosts it. And then planning and the sustainability office had been chairing it. And then you have a huge following, you know, both city and county and regional, you know, it's kind of open. It's kind of open.
But there's definitely, I mean, Deb, one of the things I was thinking about is that health, you know, the Department of Health should be at these meetings. DPW should be at these meetings, schools should be at these meetings. We need more departments involved.
Yeah.
Because it is a cross-cut, I mean, economic development, it's a cross-cutting issue. And it's been kind of siloed. So I think if we could get all hands on deck, if we get everybody involved, because we need everybody.
Yeah, but it's a working group called Stormwater.
Yeah, but
right?
it's just so you're right. It's like, it is a cross-cutting issue. And
right.
it really,
it used to be called, it used to be called the Green Infrastructure Working Group. They should have never changed the name because people aren't coming who are interested in green infrastructure for other reasons.
Yeah, that was before my time.
Yeah, I've been on it from the beginning. So
yeah, so please send me that the Zoom link and any other information about it. And I've already put it on my calendar.
Oh, great. Okay.
I'll try to
really
share it.
I'll
See
do
if
that
anyone
now.
else is interested in joining from the.
And the reason people don't come to this meeting, Bill, is because you write fabulous meeting notes. So, and people feel that they were attending the meeting just by reading your notes. So if you're going to write meeting notes about this and the long-term control plan in sewage-free New Jersey, I think next week's meeting would further inform you about what you might want to include in the notes, including call to action.
Right, okay. I will.
So I just sent you, Bill, the invite too for this one.
Great, thank you. And Mo, where do you live? You live downtown or?
No, I'm up in the Heights.
Okay. I bet that's
Um,
right. Yeah, you ran against,
I ran against Michael Youn.
yeah, okay,
I
difficult challenge.
was.
But thank you for running back then. And it's too bad you didn't win because having a voice like yours on the council, you know, having somebody with real environmental expertise would be extremely valuable. I had the honor of moderating the Journal Square Community Association's at-large council candidates.
Oh, interesting.
How
was
did that go?
It went pretty well, and I asked a question about green infrastructure, and all the candidates said, "Oh yes, yes, we're absolutely in favor of it." But one person who really impressed me, and she will be getting my vote now, is Amy DeGeese, because in her opening statement, and each candidate got to give an opening statement, she talked about sustainability as one of the things that would be among her priorities. So I'll be voting for her just because of that. I'm pleased to see that. But I really want to push the council and all our elected officials. And so Joe Cunha, will he be chairing this meeting on the 28th?
We'll
No.
see. They've been a little, the MUA has been a little MIA. We're not really sure what's going on with them right now. So they're invited to the meetings. They should really be there, but for some reason, we're not sure what's going on. Hopefully they'll be there. They're
So who's
it's
chairing
extremely
it?
important.
Who-
Lindsay from planning chairs it.
Lindsay, okay.
Yeah, but we used before COVID, we were having the meetings at the MUA
Right.
offices out on 440. And so they were always there. But since we've been doing virtual, they've been less less in attendance. And I know they're doing a lot of work around the city. And obviously they're, probably addressing like post-COVID, not post-COVID, post-IDA issues too. But it's really important for them to be at the meetings.
Yeah.
Because they are the ones who do the work.
Yeah,
So, and
absolutely. Well, yeah, as you may have heard, on Sip Avenue a couple months ago over the summer, we had right at the intersection of Sip and Van Wagenen, a big sinkhole. And the JCMUA was working on that for weeks, and Sip Avenue was closed off. And I don't know if they put in any green infrastructure there, probably not, but it's
It
a
would be
shame.
interesting to circle back because one of the, the chief engineer, Richie Haydes, who's just really devoted and he's a great guy and works really hard, listens to what the community wants. He's the one who said, we're going to start planting trees before we close up streets. So it would be interesting to notice if that in fact is going on.
And Richie Haggis is with the JCMUA.
Yeah, Haytas, Haydes.
Haggis.
Yeah.
I think
But
one of the issues is really getting like the DPW and the MUA and planning and like getting everyone working together. Because
Definitely.
it really does take that coordination, and it's just been,
Yes.
that's what we really need to kind of like it. And I know that's always difficult getting departments, to work together, but it's I think it's particularly difficult because it's an authority, municipal utility authority, so they're a little bit separate from the city, but they really have to be, because of this issue around green infrastructure. That's going to take a collaboration between the MUA and the city, because the city has to maintain the projects.
Well, if Mayor Fulop told all these departments that they should be there, they would be there, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and take the marching orders very seriously.
Oh, they do. I mean, it's incredible when I email officials, and if I copy Mayor Fulop on it, I get a response much faster than otherwise. And I don't overdo that, but I do it sparingly, but when I really want to get a response. So I'll stop the recording now. But,
Yeah.